pleasant good morning to everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Coles Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. Here's what's trending. Well, before what's trending, um, we may have a guest, but we may have to reschedule. Uh, Coach Benani, Jeremy Benini, assistant women's basketball coach for Southern University. We'll keep you updated. We may be able to do it this week. We may have to reschedule. Here's what's trending on the Coles Brown Show. Southern University baseball wins the opening game against TSU. That's Texas Southern on a 4-game winning streak right now. But those games are really high scoring. Double digits. But hey, 4-game winning streak. Jaguars are trying to make a move. They'll conclude the series this weekend against Texas Southern University. Then we're going to ask, who will be the number 1 seed in the SWAC Baseball Tournament, the upcoming baseball tournament? Kind of want to get your thoughts. Come on, make a prediction. Who do you think is going to grab that number 1 seed? And last but not least, we have a lot to talk about with the NBA playoffs. We'll give you an update and our thoughts and opinion and perspective from the panel. Speaking of the panel, one less. Coach Pettaway won't be joining us today, but the rest of the panel is here. Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network, Willa Brown, affectionately known as the Hardliner, the sports administrator, and also producing today's show is the magnificent Mel. That's my new title for Couldn't Do It Without Her. Well, let's kind of get right into it. Charles, we could go with the NBA, but we want to probably save that for a little bit later. But we will start with.
How about next year? How about that, Kim? Can we say that for next year? Because I'm angry at my Lakers. I know you're not happy with your Heat. Can we save it till next year? But I guess not.
No, not next year. But it's coming up. But Southern University baseball, I've kind of been tough on the baseball team. Melanie says, "Yeah, well, yeah, the Lakers. I got a lot to talk about them." 16-15 over Texas Southern. And this team, as I've stated before, they can knock the ball off the cover. But boy, the weak point is pitching, bullpen, defense to a certain aspect. But they're on a 4-game winning streak. What do you think? What do you think, Charles, of this Southern University baseball team, the 2025 edition?
Definitely underachieving to this point, I think. But the unfortunate part about it, or the fortunate part about it, in SWAC baseball, do you evaluate the regular season, or when you get hot in the SWAC tournament and make a deep run, you get to the bracket finals, you get to the finals, is all that forgiven? So right now, Southern, I think, is the second hottest team in the conference, right behind Jackson State. You got 3 teams on winning streaks right now, 4 teams on winning streaks. So Southern University, it's been a yo-yo season. It's been disappointing, but at the same time, this is that time. You got 3 series left before you go to Birmingham. And, Southern's in a good position, but they're not in yet. There's one team chasing them right now. That's Prairie View. They've got Alcorn coming up Sunday and Monday. And, the way the Braves have been struggling, no pitching. Prairie View sweeps that series. Southern's got to continue to take care of business to even make the top 8. But to answer your question, it has been, I think, a disappointing season. After Crenshaw wins the championship in his first year, how long does that carry you? When you win the whole thing, how long does that carry you? And right now, they haven't got back to that level yet. So it's been disappointing, but there's a lot of baseball left. And I know the Jaguar Nation is not going to forget about this difficult season. But at the same time, if they make a deep run in the tournament, maybe some of that will be forgotten.
Maybe. Well, from an administrative standpoint, you're sitting, say, as AD of a team, a program that has a legacy, has had a lot of success. The question is, and I don't know if I asked you this a couple of weeks ago, but Does he deserve a shot to turn it around?
I'm a Crenshaw fan, Carlos.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about that. At the same time, I'm a realist. As Charles was saying, they have underachieved. There's no doubt about that. And Charles, to answer your question about how far does the championship carry you, I think the luster, the thrill is gone. You know,
Hmm.
from that one right there, to quote BB King.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, I look at the standings and I see the teams that are in front of Southern, and I know that Southern is outspending almost all those teams in terms of monies in the baseball program. So if you talk about dollars spent versus results, we ain't too happy, from that point of view. If this is Crenshaw's contract year, we definitely got to have a coming to Jesus meeting at the end of the season. He has to convince me that he's the guy moving forward. And so, he's got to have his PowerPoint presentation and the whole 9 yards. And, I got to feel comfortable putting my neck on the line in terms of granting him an extension to his contract in the hopes that he's going to turn it around or what have you. Look at the pitching, Carlos. And nobody has pitching, so I mean that part is neither here nor there. I don't care about them winning 16-15 or 23-22 or what have you, as long as they're winning. We know baseball is a non-revenue sport, so guarantee games is not an issue, that sort of thing. He has control pretty much over the schedule. Want him to schedule to win at the
Mm-hmm.
same time with enough competition to get the kids ready, not only for SWAC play, but for possible NCAA play, should that come about, that sort of thing. But, he, like I said, he's going to have to come into my office and convince me that he's going to be the guy moving forward. And like I said, the luster from the championship the first year, my philosophy on that, it's the kiss of death. I mean, there's no doubt about that, never a doubt about that. And for him, it could possibly be the kiss of death, especially if he's trying to live on that particular laurel moving forward. Because I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
know there's somebody out there, like I said, that's saying that, well, you want it with somebody else's kids. I
Yeah.
mean, but I'm not one to go that route because I believe, like I said, that when you take over a program, they're your kids. They ain't nobody else's kids. They're yours. So he put them together. He got them out there. He got them ready to play. And but for some reason, it just hasn't happened over the last few years. So he got to go far in the tournament this year, and he's got to convince me that he's going to be the guy moving forward.
It's interesting because I was going to ask you as a follow up. A scenario. How far does he have to go? Southern University makes it to the, let's say, the championship game. I think the odds, just to be realist, and I'm a Southern alum, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. But if that happens, a scenario, does
I'm
it
gonna
help?
I'm gonna give him
Does it help
credit
his
for it.
cause?
I'm gonna give him credit for it, Carlos. If he should make it that far, that's gonna be a check in the plus column for him. He's still gonna have to come in and convince me he's gonna be the guy moving forward. Because we're gonna need to discuss then what's the issue in the regular season that we can't be up there in that upper third during the regular season.
Hmm.
So what's going on? What's up with the program? How do you plan on rectifying that? He's still got to make me feel comfortable. I feel a little better if he makes it to the championship game, even if he loses. I feel a little better, and I'm sure he'll feel a little better also. But he's still going to have to come in and explain things.
Well,
And
here's the thing, Carlos, about what Wheeler said too. The upper third. So if you look at the standings right now, Southern is 12-11. They're 3.5 games out of third place, which is held by Alabama State. So let's say, for the sake of saying that Southern does catch or surpass Alabama State, finish in third, fourth, which would be the upper thirds, make a deep run, and then get to the bracket final, which is one step from the championship game, or the championship game, and don't get it done.
mm-hmm.
Then you decide you want to hang on and give him another opportunity. How much of an opportunity are you willing to give him? Are you willing to give him a 1-year deal, which we know how those things are tricky? Do you want to give him a 2-year deal? From my understanding, this is the last year of the contract, so that you got to do something at the end of this season. Either keep him, extend him, or not. So,
well, Charles, I'm not gonna give him 1 year. If I'm gonna give him 1 year, I might well let him go.
Yeah, because you're gonna be right back the next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think from what I see outside looking in, there are issues that is gonna take more than 1 year to get it done. So I'm gonna give him 2, or I'm gonna wash my hands and start over from scratch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you got to either go all in.
Yeah.
And I agree that 1 year you're right back, and then if you give a 1 year, and now we're just having this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Banks will be the one who decides what benchmarks does he have as far as what he have to do. And speaking of benchmarks, if you give him 1 year, then I think the benchmark goes up dramatically.
mm-hmm.
You probably would have to say you'd have to win it all. At first, I was going to say at least get to the finals, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure, and I know the Jaguar Nation is not happy. I see some of the comments already in the chat room, and the question, and then we have our FAMU graduates. People saying that if FAMU and Bethune-Cookman was in the conference, we would be having this conversation. Yes, sir, EA. We will still have this conversation.
Yeah, but I'm not looking. I mean, the bottom line is FAMU and Bethune-Cookman are in the conference, so you have to take it for the reality of it. I mean, I think Bethune-Cookman clearly is the team that's kind of surprising a lot of people. They're not surprising to me because they've been knocking on the door for the last few years. If you go back to COVID, the program was shut down, the coach was laid off, he was delivering packages, and so to build that program back up. To get it back going after COVID, and they were right there the last few years. So, and I think they won that series with FAMU recently, so they kind of are in pretty good shape. But if you look at the standings, they're only a game and a half up on FAMU, and so there's 3 series left before we get to the SWAC tournament. So anything can happen. But clearly, Bethune-Cookman and FAMU are in the conference, both playing some pretty good baseball. And you're just going to have to match what they're doing because FAMU won the championship recently. Bethune's been right there. So I think the level of SWAC baseball has been increased. Grambling won it last year. FAMU won it the year before. Alabama State has won it. Another blue blood program, Jackson State. Omar Johnson just got a new contract. He won back-to-back SWAC tournament championships. Beat the number 1 seed in Louisiana several years ago. That seems like that's been eons ago when that has happened. But Omar Johnson has had that program solid, but the last few years they've been an early out in the SWAC tournament. So where do you go with that in the grand scheme of things as far as that's concerned? So programs are on the rise. UAPB clearly is another surprise. Look at what they're doing. First year coach, he's got a lot of money. I'm sure he's put his own skin in the game as far as improving that program. UAPB probably is about as big a surprise as Bethune-Cookman. So I think SWAC baseball overall is increasing, but you just got to figure out a way to stay with it, stay on it, and be relevant in this conversation. And right now, Southern's on the opposite end of it.
Well, Charles, the Florida schools are always going to have an advantage. I think, it was that way when they were in the MEAC.
Right.
And it's that way now.
And that's the
So, I
thing.
mean, but at the same time, Carlos, I know that I am outspending these guys. So, like I said, somebody's got to come in and explain, because you got the resources necessary to get it done. Why are we not getting it done? As it pertains to the regular season. Are we looking at scheduling? Are you scheduling too hard? Or what's happening?
No,
But you're
Well,
gonna have to explain to me what's going on.
mhm.
How recruiting? What's your recruiting philosophy? I mean, you got to come in, like I said, PowerPoint presentation, the whole 9 yards. You got to make
Mhm.
me feel good about you in terms of you leading our baseball program moving forward.
Well, let me
scheduling's not
well
the
let
issue.
well let me
Scheduling's
say
not,
this. Let me say this. Bethune Cookman and FAMU have had success when they was in the MEAC. So it's not like this. They are Johnny come lately or just emerging as a baseball, a strong baseball program. EA asked the question: if they were not in the conference, would we be having the same question conversation? And I'm saying yes because Prairie View has invested in their program. And we talk about Southern spending money. I'm sure Prairie View and them has definitely invested in their baseball program. Texas Southern, Grambling, Jackson State. So there's always been, just for the point of record, strong baseball programs in the conference. And then that's why I think this discussion is going on now, because Southern was is one of those programs. They have legacy. They have so much success, and the expectations is not where it should be right now. And so when you have to look at the overall situation going forward, I agree, Willie. You're going to have some tough conversations. If we were in that seat as AD with the Southern University baseball program, because success is always expectations, and then also scheduling. The state of Louisiana during midweek. There are some strong baseball programs in the state of Louisiana. That's not even debatable. But I think what's going to be said is it's just a matter of you got to win the conference or win the tournament. That's the most important thing. But you know where I'm going to come from, Charles? We've had some success as a conference in the midweek games. All games, what matter?
yeah.
Mm.
All games matter.
I'm gonna throw out the midweek, Carlos, because I think the mantra has changed. Remember, there's no more divisions in SWAC baseball. You really
Mhm.
don't have any weekends off. We used to have 2 bye weeks way back when, but now no more divisions. You're playing basically everyone in the league. I think teams are probably going to start backing off a little bit in the midweek because it's such a grind every week, every weekend in the conference. So
Wow.
whomever you can get in the midweek that's local, that's close, you get a couple of pennies out of it and a guarantee. If Southern plays LSU, if Southern plays Nichols or whatever, I think that's about as good as it's going to get. Now, Texas Southern might play Kansas. Texas Southern might play Texas A&M, or Grambling plays Arkansas. That's about as good as it's going to get there. And that's as good as it gets, really, because Arkansas is one of the top 10 teams in the country. But I think scheduling is different now because, and really this last couple of weeks, if you look at the standings, there have been some intriguing matchups, in the conference. Alcorn, Jackson State, Jackson trying to get in there. Southern Texas Southern. I mean, in the West, we would be playing these teams, but you got these other matchups that count, and you don't have any weekends off. So I think scheduling isn't as big of a deal now because you're playing these teams and because there's no divisions. So I think scheduling is thrown out the window because you're playing these teams in conference. Midweek, I honestly, personally think you're backing off a little bit because you don't have the pitching, and you've got to find a way to keep your team healthy for the weekend because that's where all the conversation is. So I think scheduling doesn't really matter now. When it was East West, yeah, but it's not anymore. So I think that's where I think scheduling kind of gets, in my opinion, I think
Yeah,
scheduling gets watered down a little bit.
I understand, but I don't know. I guess I'm such a competitor. I I don't know, boy. That kind of rubs me the wrong way. If they're not concerned about the midweek games, I mean, there's so many things you can work on in the midweek games to get you ready for your conference. And you know you got to win the conference. You know you got to win the SWAC baseball tournament.
Yeah.
But over the past, I've seen some teams, and boy, some of our teams have struggled, Charles, like Alcorn in the midweek game. That was horrible.
Yeah.
One guy said, that's a fireable offense. I said, this is his first year.
Yeah. Yeah.
How can you do it? But Willer, the midweek games, I don't want to say one is more important.
You got to be strategic with it, Carlos. You can't schedule headbangers, every time during the midweek. You got to be strategic with it, in terms of the competitive nature and in terms of the competitive level, of those particular games, that sort of thing. I'm not going to schedule a top 10 team during midweek every time, that sort of thing. I mean, I got to look and see where we are competitive, where we can be competitive, and make sure that we are scheduling competitive games during the midweek. I mean, you got to be mindful of the strength of schedule and all that sort of thing. But at the same time, we all know we're a one-trick pony. Ain't but one team going in to the NCAAs, and that's the team that wins the whole thing. So we strategically need to be working on what it is that we need to do in order to win the SWAC baseball tournament so that we can get to the next level. And that's it. I'm not asking you to bring in any guaranteed dollars. We know if you play LSU or somebody, you ain't making a whole hell of a lot of money either way it go. So I'm not even going to say, go ahead out there and bring me some money back. Because that's just a waste of time. Don't bother.
Yeah. But but again, I'll use example in Louisiana. Each state, I'm sure FAMU tries to beat South Florida. You got Nichols in Louisiana, McNeese, and they're kind of peer schools, right? I mean, Southern plays LSU
so
every
they should
year.
be scheduling them.
And that's what I'm saying. So, some people in the chat room think it's in the skills. You're talking about, not showing concern for the midweek. Again, I think all games matter. No, you're right. You got to strategically be smart in your scheduling. But if you're in the area that has other baseball programs equivalent to your programs, I think you should play them.
Yeah, and
that's all I'm saying.
And beat them.
Oh, well, yeah, that would help. That would help because you're a one-bid league.
Well,
go ahead, Charles.
Well, there's a question that somebody brought up. Why is it that at the other PWI conferences that they don't think the way that we think? And the answer to that question is because in those conferences, the Power 2.5 or whatever it is, the athletic directors are all on a string in those conferences. If you look at the SEC, and maybe we shouldn't because we're not even in that category, but my point is that they all schedule kind of the same way. You look at LSU, you look at Texas A&M, you look at Texas, you look at their scheduling. They all, and because they're so good, when you're playing each other, it helps that team and it helps the conference. That's why the SEC got pretty much everybody in the NCAA basketball tournament because all the ADs in that league, they don't talk very much about it through the media, but they're all on a string. Unfortunately, in our league, it's not like that. And we've been talking about it on this show for 120 years. We all of our ADs need to get on a string and kind of think the same way to help elevate because it's all about the conference. If we didn't have the SWAC by our names, would we be going to the NCAA tournament at all? No, we would not. So we need to help. We need to do what we can to elevate the conference, all of our schools. It's not going to happen, though, realistically. You have some schools that are near the bottom budget-wise. And our president talked about it last week with our basketball coach press conference. We have one of the 3 smallest budgets in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And you know where the other 2 are. And so unfortunately, we would love to do the same thing, but it's hard for us to do kind of the same thing. But for our ADs, we all got to sit in the room and get together, and the commissioner knows what it takes, and he has explained that to the ADs, and all he can do is explain, do a PowerPoint. But when your AD is getting a little bit of pressure from your CFO on the financials, it's a little bit different. And so that's why I think the mindset is not quite the same, because we all taking our charges from our own folks, the powers that be at our own schools.
Well, everybody's weighing in. We need to take a break. Dr. Cavill says yes, a mixture of midweek games geographically.
Mm-hmm.
I guess just in my opinion, I don't see why they would not continue to do that, because they've been doing it for years. Well,
Alcorn plays Ole Miss. They're getting a guarantee. Texas Southern's playing Texas A&M or Texas. It's kind of the same thing with basketball too, but it may not be on the same kind of scale financially.
But we're talking baseball.
Right. Yeah. Baseball. Yeah,
we're not talking about basketball, and that's a whole nother conversation. We talk about that in football with the guarantee games, but in baseball, and I'll close it with this: we talked about it for years. This is the sport that can have them much success, right?
Mm-hmm.
Baseball. We're going to have to continue, in my opinion, they're going to have to continue to put emphasis on those midweek games, play them, and win some of them. And that can help you in the tournament. We know you got to win the baseball tournament. You know, if you get the regular season championship, you get a high seed in the tournament. So ADs, I think they will do the right thing and continue to play it and put a little bit more emphasis on the midweek games. Willa, hold that
Carlos,
thought.
if you're not going to make enough money to cover expenses, ain't no need in going. You wasting time.
We're talking about money. No, we're not talking about traveling across the country. I'm just saying, like FAMU, they got Florida State right there in the city.
Yeah, so that's pretty much a no-brainer.
But just my opinion. Let's do this right quick. But Charles, the president have to have the athletic mindset to say what you want. The SWAC commissioner works for them, not vice versa. It's the stupidest mindset I've ever seen. Hold that thought. We'll come back. And speaking of that,
work for somebody.
and speaking of that, the question is, who do you think is going to be the number one seed in the SWAC Baseball Tournament? We'll take a timeout. You're watching the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. Pat Riley, hold on. I'll talk to you. We'll be right back.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time-consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto, home, and life insurance needs, make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me, Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
There's a shot. It might be. It could be. Right field. Grand slam. What a shot. That's how you get hot, young fella.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do, and all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
I like that tune. The Marching 100. I give credit where credit is due. The jukebox, the sonic boom of the South, and the Marching 100. Although they're Marching 100, someone finally gave me the story on that. I was like, man, but they have like 400 members in their band a lot of times. But it's from the original. Welcome back to the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. Do me a favor, hit the like, notification, thumbs up button on not only the Carlos Brown Show, but all of our shows on the Black College Sports Network. We would really appreciate it. During the break, I had a chance, as always, to peep in the chat room. Interesting conversation going on. Now, we're gonna get into that number one seed in a minute. Who do you think? Even this is for the chat room. Who do you think is going to be the number one seed? Try to be objective. Don't have the orange and green glasses on, or the blue and gold, which I never have. I'm just not like that. You know, I'm independent and outspoken. I understand that, but try to be objective. Basically, look, and we know we still got 3 weeks left. You can look at the standings, but also you can go on your gut feeling. I'll start it off in a minute, but before the break, we kind of want to wrap up that first segment. And Charles, let me see if I'm understanding your point. You were saying about the midweek games again. What were you saying?
All right, so I'm going to go back because I didn't clear it up at the beginning, and I should have. In my opinion, the purpose of midweek games is really one thing: to get work in for guys who normally don't play a lot on the weekend. When you have these conference weekend series, you've got your starting 9, DH you might swap out. But if you have a competitive conference series week in and week out, you're only playing a handful of players, unless it's a blowout. So midweek games, in large part, are for players who normally don't see a lot of action on the weekend. And so, for example, we played Ole Miss, and it's 29-1, but we used probably 11 pitchers in that game. but the plan was to use probably 9 anyway, because they're guys that normally don't get a lot of work. So that's kind of number one, what the midweek games are for. And even if you go across town to LSU, they'll tell you, we want to play. We want to start our second string shortstop. We want to use 6 or 7 pitchers just to get some work in for some of these other guys. The other part of it is you get a guarantee if you're playing at LSU or Texas A&M or Ole Miss, whatever the case, you're going to get some money there. But so I'm clearing that up because I didn't say that at the beginning. But midweek games are for that. And what I'm saying is that now I think, because this is the first year of this new SWAC baseball alignment in which there's no division, they're playing almost everybody and they're grind on the weekends. I think you have to be careful in terms of even how you do your midweek games, because you got a grind coming up in the SWAC on the weekend. So it's a little bit different, I think, than what it was last year or the year before. So that's my point as far as the midweek games are concerned. Now, there was a point that was made before we went to break about the commissioner and presidents and all that. And all I'm saying is that the commissioner understands what it takes in terms of trying to get the best seed that the SWAC can get. But the question is, will AD schedule, along with the coach, schedule the way it needs to be scheduled from top to bottom, from team 1 to 12? And I think the answer to that question right now is no, it's not happening. And so do our athletic directors really care about trying to get the best seed possible? Or is just a concern, hey, once we get to the SWAC baseball tournament in Birmingham at Rickwood Park, let's go and let's see what happens. I'm a SWAC guy. I want to see us get the best seed possible. I don't like it when we're the number 4 seed at LSU's regional on their field. I've seen that horror movie way too many times. What is it going to take for us to be a number 3 seed and play at SMU's regional? I would love to see that, but that's never happened. And so that's what I would love to see, even for softball. I would love to see Prairie View playing at, I don't know, Florida's regional and playing Texas A&M instead of playing on their home field. That's what I would like to see. I might be unrealistic. I might be naive. Okay. But in order for that to happen, it starts at the administrative level. It starts at the AD's level. And I just don't know if we're just really interested in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, AD Willa Brown, let's look at it. When I look at the difference, like EA thinks, I didn't know that. FAMU defeated Georgia, he said last week. We have some bright spots. And I think if you look at each conference, because it's so geographical, Willa, you're seeing all of the teams in the conference playing those midweek games from a regional standpoint. And so you kind of had some success. But listening to Charles, it reminds me, here we go, back in history again. My other half says you live in the past too much. But this is a good example. One year, Southern had an outstanding record. And in the conference, they had I swear, Charles, and you may remember this, they had a huge lead in the conference. I want to say it was a 5 or 6 game lead at that point in the season. And so they played LSU. And normally, Southern would throw someone not high in the pecking order, pitching-wise. Coach Kadar had a series coming up with his arch rival, Grambling, the following week. So everybody was saying, you have such a big lead in the conference, and I know you have a pecking order. You throw your number 1, your number 2 star, your number 3. For this once, would you throw your number 1 pitcher against LSU because you have a shot? And guess what? The fans thought he should, because Southern pitching staff was actually pretty good that year. Really good, one of his veterans. And their second or third starter going to Grambling, they were very productive, and they could have gotten the job done. But Coach Kadar said, no, I'm going to just go throwing my third pitcher. or whatever. No, it was somebody out of the bullpen to start. And we know the rest of the story. They got spanked. They got spanked pretty good. But that Southern University baseball team actually was really good. And in that one case, live dangerously, if that's the way you want to put it. Throw it out there. But,
like
to answer your question, I'm almost finished, Wheeler. All I'm saying is the midweek games are important. And just because they don't have divisions anymore, you still have to compete. And by gosh, just kind of win some games. We got to get to the point where we're confident enough that we're more than conference winning games. And you can see some people in the chat rooms like, that mentality, McNeese and Nichols don't have that mentality. They're right. When they play against Southern or Alcorn, they're going to try to kick their what.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Willa. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just think, like Charles was just stating, those larger schools during the midweek, they throwing the mamby-pambies out there, in order to get them some work in, that sort of thing. So if a SWAC opponent puts their number ones out there in a quest to be able to say, we hung in here, or, we got us a win, that sort of thing, at the end of the day, the people that are doing the seeding and things of that nature, they know the philosophy of these SEC guys, that sort of thing. And, so for them, a win, quote unquote, against a power 2.5 school might kind of ring hollow, because you put your top dogs out there and they put their puppies out there, and we squeaked out a win. So, I mean, you feel good because you got the win against a power 2.5 school, but at the same time, in your mind, it wasn't our top dogs against their top dogs. So, I mean, so where does that leave you from a mental point of view, moving forward? And like Charles just said, if all of the ADs aren't on board in terms of the scheduling model that it's going to take to get a higher seed, then it's not going to make a difference if Southern is on the trajectory to get that higher seed. If they mess around and lose in the in the championship game, and somebody with a sub 500 record gets in, they're not going to give them Southern's space in terms of where the seeding would be. They're going to seed them according to what's going on.
Well, let me clear it up. I gave that example. That's a one-time thing. I'm not advocating you throw your number one pitcher in a midweek game. No, I'm not stupid. Some may think so. But I was saying in that instance, that one-time thing, Charles, you can shake your head if you want to, because they went and they creamed the conference that year. It's just a one-time thing. But anyway, from the midweek, there are teams that are playing. I think the ADs in the schedule, they actually are all on the same point. Every team is playing a midweek game from a regional standpoint with some of the teams. Now, have we had success for the most part? No, but we have had some exceptions. We have had a couple of years ago. Southern went up to Mississippi State and won in the regular season. So I think they're on together as far as with baseball. Now, basketball, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Where they're playing all of some, not all, all of their non-conference games against that level, which I don't understand that. But anyway.
What you have some exceptions in baseball in which in midweek, for example, we were supposed to play Stephen F. Austin at home in baseball a couple of weeks ago. It was canceled. weather number one, and we had to take all of our light poles down at our baseball stadium. We had a storm a couple of weeks ago that knocked down one light pole. Upon inspection, there was a defect in that pole, and our compliance folks on campus felt like it was good to take down all of our light poles. So we have to play day games the rest of the way. They're going to they're going to get another company to put up the poles after the end of the season. But we had Stephen F. Austin at home. Okay, so you have other examples. Jackson State plays Southeast Louisiana, UNO at home. You have some of those examples, which is more than what we see in basketball. So there are those regional examples, and you're exactly right. I don't think you're going to see Southern go play UCLA out in California in baseball unless they're getting a ton of money, unless it's an HBCU classic in which they're getting a heck of a guarantee, all expenses paid. That you're not going to see that happen. So there are examples in baseball in which you have that, which is good.
But Charles, wouldn't they be considered
and they don't have
schools?
to do that.
Are these considered peer schools? In your mind, they will be considered peer schools.
Yeah.
So to me, that's different.
Yeah.
You're playing the peer schools. Not only should you be playing them, you should be beating them at some point in time.
Yeah.
But that Carlos, if Southern goes to play Louisville in basketball, Louisville not starting their third team. You know that for a fact.
They starting their starters.
Dogs out there. They're putting the top dogs out there, and they're going to try to grind it up your butt as much as possible. And then when they get that big lead, they'll slide some of them other kids on in there, send you on home with that check and them Papa John's pizzas, and see you when I see you.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I like when we have those victories. Southern, Louisiana Tech. I had some people was like, Louisiana Tech and Tulsa. Look what they did in their conference. They're not good. Guess what? It's still a W, and it's a non-conference win. And there's other examples that, Texas Southern has done it a couple of times. Prairie View.
Yeah.
So, the question is, how? Since we've said baseball was the program that we can really do well in, right? That's a consensus. Then how do we make the next step? And I think, trying to hold back or not scheduling people because of there's no divisions, Charles, that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I mean, this is just my
opinion. Just my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that in the past, when you had some opportunities to play some of these, and again, way back when you had 2 bye weekends in SWAC baseball, and you had an opportunity to go, you go and play. I know when Barrett Ray was coaching Alcorn, he would take an opportunity to go and play a South Alabama and Mobile on the weekend because we were off in conference. So he believed in trying to play an elevated schedule. And so that was a challenge he had, and he knew. But other coaches, back then you had Kate Orr and you had Omar Johnson, and you had Mike Robb and others. But that's back then. But as we look at it now, if we just really do a deep dive and just get these coaches privately and ask them, is that something that you're interested in? Or are you looking at just trying to put your team in the best configuration come Rickwood Park in 3 weeks? I think that's probably what they're going to say at this point. Now you talked about who could be the number 1 seed. Right now it's Bethune-Cookman, but there are 3 other teams that's right there. Alabama State's right there. Florida A&M is there. Grambling is right there. But right now, Bethune-Cookman, I think, and Bethune-Cookman's been on my radar for the last few years. They've been 1 pitcher away, 1 hit away from maybe getting to the finals. They've been in the bracket finals. So I think that's a team that right now they're on par, but you got 3 other teams that's kind of right there. You can't count Grambling out. You got 4 teams that are on pretty good winning streaks right now. But I think, in my opinion, Bethune-Cookman will probably hold on to that 1 seed. But Florida A&M, that series with Florida A&M was huge when Bethune-Cookman won that series a few weeks ago. But I do think Bethune-Cookman will hold on. But you got 1 through 8, Carlos, is right there. I mean, Prairie View's not quite out of it yet. Southern still has to take care of business. Jackson's got to take care of business with Valley. So, I think 1 through 8, you can shake it up in a bag. I think Bethune-Cookman has the edge at 1, but 2 through 8, who knows? I mean, you can shake it up, and who knows who might come out of that.
Well, but the question specifically. So you say Bethune-Cookman.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a question for Will in the chat room. If you can, Melanie, put it up. There we go. For AD Wheeler, just observing from the outside, does baseball carry a higher budget cost despite being minimal revenue producing with large rosters, 3 game sets for travel, food, hotels compared to basketball? Yeah, good question.
No, I'd say not necessarily. Simply because, even though you're talking about more people with baseball, that sort of thing, baseball is not traveling like basketball. They're not going as far, theoretically, that sort of thing and stuff. So the numbers aren't going to be, like that. For the most part, your baseball teams are doing like day travel, that sort of thing. Is almost very few overnights in terms of out of conference.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got more control from a baseball point of view. So, no, it's not, it's not on par travel-wise with basketball. Matter of fact, it's not even close.
Like Alabama State?
Talking about right now, if you were talking about going to play the big boys and all that sort of thing and stuff now, it's going to cost you, if you do that. If you start flying out to California and, that, the baseball money is not nowhere near what the basketball money is, you're going out there for $30,000, you're going to spend $50, quote unquote, and travel by itself, so you coming back pretty much at a deficit at the end of the day. And those are things that you don't want any part of.
But I do think it's a little bit different, though, Carlos, because, now, again, talking about divisions. So, for example, we got Florida A&M at home, but we had to go to Bethune-Cookman early in the season. When we were in divisions, all we had to worry about was Southern, Prairie View, Texas Southern, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Grambling home and home. We're going to Alabama State, which is something that we hadn't done. So I'm anxious. I don't have the data. Maybe Dr. Cavill does in terms of in this first year, how much are we spending now with travel? Because now you're playing teams that you normally wouldn't play. I think Texas Southern played either Bethune-Cookman or Florida A&M in Florida, and so that's a little bit more cost. So I'm just wondering.
And you're right, Charles. You probably are spending more money than they have in the past. Simply because you've gotten outside of the region. When you got rid of the divisions. Yeah. And I'm sure that's something that the powers that be looked at when they decided to go away from the divisions and go, to the single division type of format. So I mean, those are things that, you knew coming in that, expenses was going to go up in softball and baseball simply because you were getting rid of the divisions. So you kind of prepare for that somewhat. I think it's good that they've gone to a single format, because now everybody gets the opportunity to play everybody else. Now it's just a matter of trying to manipulate the schedule so that, you're not breaking the budget, so to speak, in terms of those teams that historically don't have the travel dollars, to be going back and forth to both Bethune and FAMU, in the same year, that sort of thing. If you can flip-flop
every other year,
that sort of thing and stuff, try to take some pressure off of some of these schools, that would probably help a little bit. But, I mean, you got to be creative with that thing.
Well, I have talked to some coaches, some baseball coaches here recently, and I asked about this new format, and based on the temperature that I'm getting is that coaches don't have a problem with it. So I think that's interesting. Softball, on the other hand, is a whole nother animal. There was talk about doing away with divisions in softball, and I talked with a coach recently, and he said, no, sir. I'm not for it unless you go back to the way we had it back in the day when you had the softball roundup. Remember the softball roundup that we had? I think it was in Hattiesburg. If you go back to that, there will probably be some consideration to do away with divisions. But as of right now, there doesn't seem to be any temperature to do that. And so there's some pushback on doing away with divisions in softball, where baseball, and of course, you're not going to go to Bethune and Florida A&M in the same year. One year you'll play Bethune at home. You'll go to Florida A&M and it flips. So it just depends. In some schools, you're not going to play, and I think that's a question that's come up about baseball. Why do away with the divisions when you're not necessarily playing everybody? So that's a whole nother conversation. Just something that we can definitely debate and will be debated, I'm sure, in the spring meetings in June. But it's just one of those things with baseball.
Yeah, well, because I know Southern went to Bethune-Cookman. I don't think I saw FAMU on the schedule. I have to double check. I don't think they played FAMU. And if they did, it was on the road. But I guess if you got, as Wheeler would say, you got the money. The largest budget. Don't say that, Wheeler. Don't say that, the largest budget. But it's like this. I'll use an example. I know I'm going to the bowl game, right? Yeah, we didn't play Southern. Thanks, colleague there, Cameron. But I'm going to the bowl game in Atlanta. So I go to the budget director, and I got 12 months to come up with a plan to get the expenses. So when the time comes, Celebration Bowl, I'm there, but I got a plan. So AD Wheeler, I'm not hard on the ADs, right? They have a hard enough job, so they gonna have to come up with a little extra some kind of way. Now, I don't want to say you have to rob Peter to pay Paul. So I'm gonna say you have to rob Peter and Paul and pay no one. But I get it. It's tough, but just my opinion. I like the setup now in baseball. If they go back to divisional play, I would like it then, because I'm pro SWAC. And one of the things I like about Dr. McClellan, he's been an AD. He's been, when I first met him, yeah. So he kind of knows it's not an easy job being a director of athletics, Will. I really will.
Carlos, the only thing is when a coach comes into your office and says, I'm going to raise money for this, that, and the other, you got to take that with a grain of salt, especially if that coach doesn't have a history of raising big dollars. And from an AD's point of view, if you're going to put your name out there on a contract with the hopes that the coach is going to raise the dollars necessary in order for you to go, okay, I got some land in West Hill I can sell you for cheap. That sort of thing.
Wait a minute, Will.
Don't. I'm just saying. If and a lot of times, coaches will come in and they'll speak in tongues and all that sort of thing and stuff. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring in X amount of dollars and all that sort of thing. I need to be able to do this. I need to be able to do that. And from an AD's point of view, you go ahead and do it at your own risk. Okay. But you need to understand that if that coach doesn't come through, if those dollars don't come through, you've already put your name on the contract. You've already arranged for travel and all that sort of thing. Where is that money going to come from? Who you going to rob to pay this now?
Wait a minute, now maybe I'm not hearing it right now, folks. Y'all, I'm 60 years old. My hearing may not be as good as it was when I was 20. Who's are you saying that coaches, i.e., whatever sport, or specifically talking about football, basketball?
I'm saying for whatever sport.
You're saying that they have
not
to.
A history there of them raising dollars, but they come to you with an idea of wanting to go play somebody in West Hill somewhere that is going to cost a whole bunch of money, and they say, Mr. Mr. Brown, I'm going to raise the money for this trip, that sort of thing.
The
And
coach?
if they don't have a history of that, you need to know that when you put your name, Mr. AD, on the contract, okay, that you are now committed to that particular trip, okay? And if that coach doesn't come through for whatever reason, whoever's supposed to die didn't die, and he didn't get the inheritance or what have you, then you know that you're going to have to find the money, Mr. AD, somehow, because you signed that contract for that team to still go on that particular trip.
But wait a minute, it sounds like I'm hearing IE coach has to help raise money. Is that what you're saying? Wait a minute, Will. No, wait a minute. Maybe I'm confused here. I thought the AD is responsible for that, but with help.
But the individual coaches, they're always soliciting monies for their programs. I can't tell you how much Omar has gotten for Jackson State in terms of the baseball program.
Baseball, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't put a price tag on a lot of those coaches' ability to raise funds for their programs. Now if somebody like him comes into my office and say, Mr. Brown, I want to go this, that, and the other, that sort of thing, I'm going to raise the money for it. I know he has a history of coming through with those dollars. I ain't got no problem signing that. Let's go. Go with it.
Now, Kadar was the same way.
He's going to come through.
Coach Kadar, same way.
Yeah.
He did a lot self-promoting and
Yeah. So you got a lot of coaches that are adept at going out and getting monies for their programs. And there are people that only want to give to those particular programs.
But the vast majority of coaches are not.
No, you're
the vast majority
right.
of them are not, and I think.
Right.
But is that's not their job, though, right?
Right, right.
It's not their job.
Yeah,
not their job.
But you can help them, right?
You have wants and needs, Carlos. I'm gonna take care of your needs. Okay, you take care of your wants. So when your wants kind of carry over into your needs, okay, then we got to find a way to try to get that done. And so if that means that now you're going out there to try to solicit funds for that, but you have no history of that, okay, then that doesn't go from a want to a need. It stays as a want.
Yeah, I couldn't deal with then if they don't have a history. I see what you're saying, but son, but boy, you just got to work together, because ultimately you're going to be held responsible. The director of athletics, yeah. Go ahead, Charles.
There's only a handful of coaches in this conference, and we can go back to history: to Eddie Robinson, Roger Kador, probably W.C. Gordon, Ben Jobe. I mean, we can go. There's only a handful of coaches we can name in probably 25 years that can say that on their name they can go out there and get the type of dollars that's halfway needed or necessary. Kador could do it. I think Omar Johnson can do it, but it's not that many. And so I don't think coaches are really saying it. It's good in theory. It sounds good, but at the end of the day, there has to be a collaboration between coach and AD to kind of make things work. And even right now, okay, we're coming to the end of the semester here. Graduation for us is next week. Graduations are coming up. Someone's going to win the softball tournament. Someone's going to win the baseball tournament. When it comes to paying to go to those tournaments, how does that work when
that's the AD's ballywag, so to speak. That's the AD's responsibility to make sure that there's money there for that particular purpose. But I would say this, Charles and Carlos, every school that I've been to, each coach has an account in the foundation. Each coach has an account in the foundation where people can give monies to their particular sports. And coaches are free to utilize those dollars in terms of, some of the things that they want to have that they're not necessarily going to be able to get out of the budget. and you got people that give faithfully to those particular coaches for them to put, for those monies to go into their foundation account. So I mean, even like at Fort Valley with who's my man just left there, the men's basketball coach, Charles, applied for your
Montez
job.
Robinson.
Yeah, like Montez had an account at Fort Valley. He would normally raise probably about 35, 40,000 a year. Just for little incidental things, that sort of thing. He might want an extra set of practice gear, or wanted the kids to have an extra pair of practice shoes or what have you. And we know that we didn't have the money necessary in order to be able to, go that route. Or he wanted a pair of pink cancer uniforms or what have you. And we didn't have the money necessary to do that. He would go out and raise those dollars necessary in order to make that happen.
But when it comes to the NCAA tournament, is that more of an administrative president?
That's all administrative. That's all administrative. Coaches have no say. I ain't gonna say no say so, but they don't have a dog in the fight with that. The AD is going to take care of everything and make sure, the dollars are necessary, make sure the travel arrangements are made, that sort of thing. He's going to check out the travel party to make sure nobody's on the list that's not supposed to be on the list, and, the whole 9 yards that go with that. The coaches are going to come in and tell you, when they would like to leave, and, so forth and so on. And, if possible, we'd like to take our meals at the hotel instead of going to Golden Corral or, what have you, all the requests that they need, and the AD wants to make sure that he or she helps them, and taking that burden off of them, so that they concentrate on nothing but getting the job done at the end of the day. Yeah. I don't want the football coach worrying about how high the grass is, or the basketball coach worrying about how many seats are on the bus, that sort of thing. And I mean, we're taking care of all that for them.
Right.
They strategize, and let's go out here and win one for the Gipper.
Oh, that sounds so lovely. That sounds so lovely. But
that's true.
But at the end of the day, whether we agree or disagree, we go in and discuss things, and we might have to go in the room and have a powwow.
Yeah.
But Willa, when we come out, we are one.
Yeah. And sometimes it gets contentious.
Yeah, I understand.
Ain't no doubt about it now. We have thrown some expletives out there and all that sort of thing and stuff, and but at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, we know that our main goal is to do the best we can by those kids and for those kids, and to make sure that from an administrative point of view, we give the coach the necessary weapons in order to be successful. So you don't ever want a coach to say that he didn't get what was necessary in terms of being successful. You won't use that one as an excuse. You drew up the wrong play at the end of the game or what have you. You didn't substitute. I ain't got nothing to do with all that. Your substitute pattern was off or what have you. I ain't got nothing to do with that. I make sure the meals are hot, the iced tea is sweet, the buses are ready to go, and you're ready to get where you need to get in order to get after it.
One thing I will say is as we won the baseball championship in 2011, and I do know this as far as baseball and softball because I see their routines. Baseball and softball is a little bit different than basketball and football. There's not a whole lot of meals, snacks in baseball and softball. The expense as far as that, maybe a couple of hot meals. You talked about the travel party. So I think baseball, softball is just a little bit different than the other sports with the Celebration Bowl and the SWAC championship game. You got over 100 people that you got to deal with, trainers and all. But with baseball and softball, I'm not going to say it's not as much, but it is not as much because you're not going to be eating 5 times a day. You're practicing, you're playing the game, you're eating light before the game, before your regional. You'll eat heavy after the game, one big meal. But the next day, of course, you're in elimination mode most of the time. You're going to eat light before then. So it's not quite as tedious. The travel party might be a little thick, but other than that, for baseball and softball, it's pretty well kept in terms of what the players eat, nutrition. My only thing is I would like to see our teams, and I think we do, get to the site in a timely fashion where you're not rushing. I think that's important. You want to get the players off their feet. You want to give them at least a couple of days. I would leave 2 days before if it was me, depending on even how close it is, just to get them off their feet and relax. I know the NCAA will give you guidance in terms of when you can leave. You can't fly if it's less than 400 miles or 450 miles from your campus to that destination. Like our baseball team, when we won it, we played at the Rice Regional. And of course, we were thinking about flying, but it was too close between Alcorn and Houston. You could not fly. Now you could, but you're paying for it on your own. The NCAA is not going to pay for a flight for you to fly down there. So we busted down there. It was okay, no problem. But I'm just saying, in terms of making the team as relaxed and as comfortable as possible, I would leave 2 days early, even if it's right up the street, so we can get into that rhythm, get into that mode, get to the stadium, prepare, and just be mentally ready as well as physically ready. That's just me. I'm not an AD, but I think that's important. You want this to be a first-class experience for your student athletes. Going to the NCAA tournament is something that you may only experience one time. And when you do, you want it to be a first-class experience as best as you possibly can.
Charles, you're exactly right. There's no doubt about that. We as athletic directors, a lot of times, we will listen to the coaches, and sometimes, different coaches like different things. Some coaches want to get there super early. You got other coaches that want the kids to sleep in their own beds as long as possible, that sort of thing. But you as an AD, you want to make sure that you put all of the options out there, and make sure that, everything's available that needs to be available for that particular coach to make whatever decision he or she wants to make in terms of their particular team and in terms of, them getting their team ready. Now, you'll make those suggestions as an AD. I'd rather for them to be there early, super early, that sort of thing and stuff. If a coach is of the mode or the mindset that he wants them to sleep in their bed as long as possible, I might have to override that, at the end of the day, in order to make sure that they get there. But at the same time, I don't want him to be able to utilize the fact that I made an executive decision as an excuse not to get the job done. Well, if we would have stayed in our bed, Carlos, the night before the game and got up that morning and went to the venue, then we would have been okay and we would have won the game. But that mean old Wheeler Brown decided to take us 2 days early and all that sort of thing. Nah, we're not hearing that.
You couldn't do it anyway, Wheeler, because the NCAA has mandated press conferences that you must attend the day before the game. So that theory is out the window because they're mandating that you attend these press conferences, which is usually the day before the game and all that stuff. So, I mean, you can time it out however way you want to time it out, but you got to be at the venue at a certain time per NCAA regulations and press conference and media availability.
There's no doubt about that.
Well,
there's no doubt about that.
Before you get to the NCAA tournament, I close out this segment. We got to get a timeout in. I remember on a lot of occasions in the conference games, the S Club at Southern, they would feed the opposing team, especially if they played a doubleheader. And you know what? That made your heart feel good. Jambalaya, chicken wings, hot sausage po' boy. That's just a few. And that was a good thing, Wheeler. We laughing, but
Carlos, you know what I'm gonna say about that?
No, they were feeding. They Southern fed the other team.
You up for the kill, Carlos. You up for the kill.
No.
We fell for that. I'm telling you. Listen to this story before you break. Listen to this story. It is 1975, okay, and we're going to play Grambling in football, okay. and we leave the hotel and we go to Gramblin's campus for the pregame meal. I have never seen so much food in my life. Okay, I'm talking steaks as big as your head, and
Wow.
they were just pounding on the plate, that sort of thing. And we like fools.
Ate too much.
Just man, couldn't get enough. Couldn't get enough.
What was the score of the game?
We went out there and got the snot beat out of us because we could barely move. At the end of the day, we could barely move because of that healthy pregame meal. And we thought Grambling was just being nice to us, that sort of thing. They were fattening us up for the kill. They ain't doing it, but just fat us up for the kill. So you gotta be wary of all that now. Gotta be wary of them gifts now.
In moderation, as a nutritionist would say. Shame on you. We're gonna take a timeout. When we come back, want to give some shout outs to some softball teams in the division. We have some division winners. Also, SWAC baseball games yesterday, and get you ready for today's game. And then we're going to talk some NBA playoffs. And Charles, I'm going to go hard on my Heat, but I'm going to go hard on the Lakers. All of you guys, some of you had them coming out into the NBA championship against the Celtics. Fools go. And all I'm going to say is somebody is a liability on defense, and everywhere he's been a liability on defense. You got to be a good two-way player. Let me go to a timeout. You're watching the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. We shall return.
It's like a loot machine. All around town, people trying to get down. It's like a loot machine.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Sonia from She Say Sports. Make sure to check us out every Friday morning at 9 a.m. on Black College Sports Network, YouTube, and Linktree. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. Dr. Kabil's laughing at Will is his story. What's the lesson? Beware of kindness. Too much kindness is not really kindness.
Yeah.
Well, Grambling has been known for those kind of things. I could have told you that, Will, if I knew you back then. And a a little history lesson. South Louisiana, North Louisiana is totally different. People from Louisiana know what I'm talking about. Or if you went to school, you think they've had a spread in Grambling. If you'd have came to play Southern, it'd have been even. You're talking about jambalaya, crawfish, gumbo. The gumbo will have you stretched out. You know, you got to have a nap afterwards.
Well, you know, you talked about that, Carlos, at Southern University. You know, we talking about SWAC baseball. You know, and I still say this to this day. SWAC baseball tournament when it was at Southern University, you had all that. You had the chicken wings, the jambalaya, the snowballs, and that's what made the SWAC baseball tournament, in my opinion, what it was, which was really popular. The fact that you had good food in baseball, that does make it better.
And yeah, and the club would feed, you know, the opposing teams, especially if it was a doubleheader in between games.
Yeah.
So, you know, it made you smile because, again, we like to be competitive. We like to beat each other on the athletic playing field. But after that's over with, we're still HBCU family. We're still HBCU family. Let's get out the clipboard, and Pat Riley just keep texting me. He knows I'm not happy, and we're going to get to that in a minute.
Jeannie Bus too.
Yeah. Come on. Reorganization, what we're probably going to be talking about, are restarts for some program. Friday's game, it was FAMU all over Alabama A&M 17-2. A very good series going on in Daytona Beach. Alabama State was winning that game. I got a chance to, on the Cat Network, to watch some of the game. And I was like, boy, Alabama State looks like they got this in the bag. It's never over till it's over. Cookman comes back and takes a 10-9 victory over Alabama State. That's going to be an outstanding series, if I do say so myself. Of course, we talked a little bit about it. Southern University over TSU 16-15. I wonder if Southern's going to win that series. Percentage says TSU is going to bounce back. I think it's going to go to the third game to determine who's going to win the series. Also, today, well, let me say this. Alcorn and Purview A&M, they had to reschedule weather. Doubleheader Sunday, thanks to Charles for the information, and a single game Monday. Grambling State and UAPB, they're going to play 2 games today. FAMU, of course, in Alabama A&M, Bethune-Cookman and Alabama State, Texas Southern and Southern, and JSU and Mississippi Valley State. I had on one of my notes, it's another game. I think Alabama State and Bethune-Cookman are going to play 2 games, if I'm not mistaken, today. Because, you know, April and May, the weather is really unpredictable.
I think Jackson and Valley, I think that series is Saturday, Sunday, too, because of weather up in Itabena.
So it's probably a doubleheader, maybe Sunday or –
yeah.
But, you know, the good thing, because you remember years ago, it would always, and Coach Cato would be in an uproar when some of the games, you know, you had to pay 80% of the games because of the inclement weather. And, boy, one time Coach Cato was like, look, we have a chance to get first, but we're locked in at second. Heck, we don't need to play those makeup games. And that was a controversy, to say the least. So it looked like they're still getting the majority of the games in against the inclement weather. Congratulations to Prairie View A&M. Congratulations to the alums, Dr. Cavill. Western Division champs, 21-3 in conference, according to the information on the website, 27-19 overall, and congratulations to FAMU, Eastern Division champion in softball, 19-5 record of conference, 23-18 overall, and to my Southern University Jaguars, finished second in the West. Wheeler, that's in the conversation. No, I'm not going to be disappointed because they didn't get first. They got second. They kind of moved on Coach Williams. So, kudos.
Well, I think, Carlos, for softball, I think what's interesting, Okay, so FAMU wins the East. Their previous coach, Camise Patterson, goes to Alabama State, takes over for their previous coach who had to resign due to health issues.
Is it money?
And Florida A&M, but their first year coach wins the Eastern Division. That's a pretty neat story we'll be talking about this week at the softball tournament. And then Vernon Bland, I mean, at Prairie View, I mean, they kind of stumbled. But for them to bounce back and win the West, they're going to be a tough out because, you know, when you talk about Prairie View softball, they always make that deep run. So I think some really neat storylines. You talked about Southern University, you know, Bethune-Cookman's going to be there. I think softball is really, really, really fun because it's just the margin of error is so small. Looks like we'll be dealing with weather coming up on the coast. I've been looking at the forecast, so we'll have to deal with that. The weather on the coast this time of year is always tricky. But I think softball's got a lot of neat stories, a lot of good teams. The margin of error is really small.
And it's very competitive, and it's actually fun to watch.
Yeah.
If you watch it on TV or if you go in there, it's fast-paced to me. With that being said, congratulations. Now to the NBA playoffs.
Playoffs? You kidding me?
Well, Melly says she's threatening to cut this live. Because I believe the Magnificent Male picked the Lakers. Let's see. I think Dr. Cavill's a Lakers fan. You are.
Not anymore.
I used to be. Oh, come on, Charles. Come on. We're gonna have to get you to lay on the couch. And,
I might have to jump off the bandwagon. I don't know. I'll have to pray about it all summer.
I'm not praying. I'm still a Heat fan. But, I was.
Sorry, Mel.
I was accused of being a turncoat because I was a Lakers fan for like 10, 11, 12 years. And when Shaquille O'Neal left and went to the Miami Heat, thus I went with him to the Miami Heat. But the interesting thing was when he left, I got excited about another player, Dwayne Wade. And so I'm a Miami Heat fan for life pretty much. Although there's been some talk that Oklahoma City fans have said, come on, Carlos, join on that side. They'll be my team in the West. How about that? My number 2 team. But with that being said, the Lakers got taken out. They won one game. And I'm going to say this. The national pundits, they love Luka. They love him. He's from a European country. He's an offensive guru. We have strengths, Willa, and we have liabilities. His liability is defensively and being in basketball shape, as JJ said. And that is something that just didn't hop up. His coach in Europe said the same thing. In Dallas, that's kind of why Nico, who got a lot of heat, they decided, hey, his contract is up. He can get a big extension. He's not in shape. He's defensive liability. So the Lakers get him. Woo! Everybody was so excited. The best 1-2 punch. They can get it done. I'm going to talk about the Heat. Just leave me alone. So with that being said, a storied franchise, a lot of championships, great legacy, a lot of players. They're going to reorganize. But they're going to have to get bigger. They're going to have to get some more post players. And I don't understand why they didn't play Hayes Charles in that last game. 7 foot 6'11", very athletic, big. Minnesota just dominated the boards. So at this point, they're going to have to hit the restart button. And they're going to have to give some help because as great as LeBron's been, Mother Nature and Father Time are undefeated. He's 40. And we've never probably seen an athlete as good as him at 40 be able to do some same things, but he's slowing down. He's slowing down, Willa.
Yeah.
He's slowing
but
down.
Nobody's saying anything about it, Carlos. That's the thing.
Oh, people are saying something about it now, for
there's no
sure.
big uproar about it, that sort of thing.
Well, you have to be careful about criticizing LeBron.
We're going to let him decide what he wants to do and all that sort of thing. 40 is 40. You know, I mean, and they all slow down when they approach that age. Kareem slowed down. You know, I mean, the list just goes on and on. You know, and you can't hit the reset button until LeBron gets up out of there. That's pretty much the bottom line. You know, you're talking $45, $50 million, you know, from a salary point of view. No. He's holding the ship up. Luka gonna be Luka. He ain't played defense since he stepped in the league. You know, you knew that when you traded for him. You know, so you're gonna have to deal with that. But the first thing you're gonna have to deal with is the LeBron issue. Whether you nudge him or whisper in his ear or what have you, you know, big fella, it's time to, you know, roll off into the sunset, go on down to Bahamas and get you a Mai Tai and, you know, do whatever you need to do from there. And let's try to keep this thing moving.
Charles?
I am busted and disgusted. I'm busted and disgusted. The Lakers look old. They look slow. And, you know, LeBron has come out and said he was playing with an injury in the previous game. You a couple other players. I mean, you're finding out this now, which I'm not surprised. The Lakers got some work to do. I think J.J. Redick lost the team after he played his starters the entire second half in the game prior. I thought, you know, from a public relations standpoint, I was a disaster. J.J. tried to explain it. No explanation needed. You can't do that. And so it completely blew up after that. The Lakers really didn't have a chance. And you know, according to reports, LeBron is coming back. His intention is to play another year. At what cost? He's not going to take a pay cut so he can help his franchise, bring some other pieces in there. That's not going to happen. You hear Giannis's name mentioned. Giannis is probably done in Milwaukee. Does he go to Miami? Does he go to LA? I don't know, but the Lakers gotta retool. It's time. It's time to retool. If Luka's the future, fine. Luka's got to get in shape. He's got to get in shape, which I don't know if that's going to happen or not because he hasn't been in shape other than maybe 7 or 8 years ago. You know, you're going to have to beat him upside the head to get him to change, which he's probably not. So that's going to be a problem. But the Lakers got to get it together, man. That's a storied franchise. And it was sad to see the way that they went out. I was very disgusted in terms of how that happened. Minnesota's a team on the rise, young, quick, playing above the rim. Anthony Edwards is a beast. Is he the face of the NBA? I'm not going to go that far, but he's making a really good case because the Minnesota made the Lakers look really abnormal. And the Lakers are abnormal, but the Minnesota Timberwolves really made it look like that.
And Willa, you can attest to this, and Charles. LeBron had an injury. The big difference is when you're 20, you bounce back much quicker from an injury. But at 40, try 50, try 60. You don't bounce back quick at all. And
Father Time is undefeated.
Yes, sir. And so, J.D. Redick, the question is his decision to playing LeBron them for the whole second half. Also, the Lakers would be to their advantage to get a bench scoring, you know, have some help. The Lakers, the Heat, Memphis, Detroit, they're all going fishing. Now with the Miami Heat, there's been a lot of talk about, and I think, Charles, you had brought it up a couple of weeks ago. Put Spoelstra up like they did Brad Stevens with the Celtics. Move him up in management. Get a new coach, and it's time for Pat Riley.
It's time.
I'm going to talk about that, Guinness and Tyrese Halliburton's father. I'm going to talk about that. That's another thing we got to talk about. But let me Knicks in 6. Let me tell you something. Let me finish. Let me finish with the Miami Heat. They got to reorganize. You know, Bam is getting a big contract. Are there pieces that you can trade to get a Guinness? We shall see. What I don't like about the Miami Heat, the last 3 years, it's like they start off slow. midways they start off slow. Then after the mid-season, they start picking up a little bit, and it's like, well, we can get into the play-in. Your goal is to not to be in the play-in. I know why the league did it to have more excitement, but Willa, that regular season is important. You try to avoid that play-in. And so this is what I see with Miami. They could turn the light switch on, but one day you're going to come to turn that switch on, and the light's not going to come on. Oh, you hadn't paid your electricity bill or whatever. The light bulb blew out.
Yeah.
That's where they are. Also, back to the Lakers, Charles. Question: Luka, if you're in management, Jenny Buss, are you gonna? Because he's up for a big extension. Willa, would you extend him or thank him for a 1 year and tell him goodbye?
He got to meet some conditioning benchmarks for me,
Mhm.
Carlos. You know, he's got to make some sacrifices in order for me to concede that he's going to be our guy moving forward. You know, he can't go home over the break, so to speak. You know, he's going to have to spend some time in the building, a lot of time in the building, working on conditioning, working on strength training, working on all those areas where he's weak at.
Well, here's the bigger question, though. I mean, I think it may not be as much as do the Lakers want Luka back? Does Luka want to come back? Because Luka can go elsewhere. So is Luka satisfied being in LA? He didn't want to go to LA. We all know that. He bought a house in Dallas and all that. He thought he was going to be a Mav for life. So knowing that he's playing with LeBron and the Laker Nation and the glitz and the glamour of LA, does Luka want to give this another shot? I think that's the other point that's going to come up during the course of the summer.
Well, still, he definitely don't want to come to Miami because Miami is going to have about $65 million of money this offseason, which has started for them. But he wouldn't last there, Wheeler. Neither would I, probably. They check.
But Carlos, do you think it's time for Pat Riley, though? I mean, because some pundits say it's time for Pat. He's done great for the game, for the Lakers, for Miami. Is it time for Pat to step aside and let Lonzo Mourning have it or move Spo up like they did using the Boston model? Is it time? Is Miami still a great destination? I would say yes. But I think the Heat culture is currently constructed from top on down. Does it need to be a total redo of that?
Yes. I've said yes 5 times. Yes. You know,
Carlos, you can't ask the man to fire himself.
No, but he's not going to go nowhere. I understand that. But he asked me, well, is it time? I say yes. God forbid, they're probably going to find him in the office when the makers come to tell him it's time to go. I don't see him stepping down, but that is my opinion. And then you'd have to find a good coach. And then some of the people are talking about, well, they got some good coaches on the bench with Spo. I'd have to open it up. But to answer your question, Charles, yes. 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 Golden State Warriors, are they in trouble?
Yes. Golden State's my second favorite team behind LA. You know, I want to see Steph Curry get another one, but last night was just bad to look at. You know, the Miami Heat are playing above the rim. I'm sorry, not the Miami Heat, the Houston Rockets. Golden State doesn't have any size to match up with them. I mean, every loose ball, every rebound, every grimy rebound, Houston got it. They're just quicker. Steph's not 100%, but if you're relying on Steph to drain some acrobatic threes, I mean, he was open. He had good looks. I think the thumb still isn't right, but the Heat have no answer for the athleticism, the post, Adams. They have no answer. Golden State's going to have to play the game of their lives to go to the Toyota Center tomorrow evening and get Game 7.
See, I got 3 fingers up. They need a third score.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler gave him 29.
Mm-hmm.
Steph, but they need one. Draymond Green, he's so busy trying to rough up people. I would give him wide open threes. He will probably miss 9 out of 10. But what he does well is
he's gonna take
defensively.
all 10. He's gonna take
Yeah.
all 10.
But what he does do well, he defensively, he's tough and rough down there. But to your point, Charles, no size. The Lakers, the same thing. They're playing LeBron at the 4. I don't think that's his position.
I thought Golden State was done when Draymond got that technical in the first 2 minutes. You could just tell he wasn't. I mean, after that first couple of minutes, just the air went out of the balloon, and it just seemed like the tension in the building, the way the Golden State Warriors were playing, and of course, Houston had a lot to do with it. You could just tell Golden State was sideways after that first Draymond tech. And then in the fourth quarter, just the breakdown on that 3 in the first 10 seconds of the fourth quarter. Come on. I mean, it just didn't feel right. And after that first minute of the game, first 2 minutes with Draymond, and then the first 10 seconds of the fourth quarter, it just didn't smell right to me.
I'm going to make a bold statement. You know, I'll make them. It's game 7. I think Golden State goes in, and I think the pressure's going to get to Houston. That's my bold statement. If I'm wrong, I'll come back next week and say I'm wrong. But in the 7th game, and Golden State, Curry and them have a pretty good record. Houston better take them out early. They better get off to a good start. If they don't, that's my bold statement, panel and chat room. Golden State wins a game 7. Clippers and Denver has been a good series. And by the way, somebody mentioned the Knicks. You know, I don't know if Coach. I don't know. Thank you. Yeah, he agrees with me once. Coach Graves sent me a meme. You remember from the Rocky movie, the trainers like throw in the towel? Throw in the towel. Okay, Coach Graves, you got me on that one, yeah. Because they lost the game by, 50? That closeout? I'll also say this, the Heat just laid down.
Yeah.
That's not Heat culture. And I'm not happy. I'm flying in next week. I'm flying in, and I'm going to have a one-on-one.
You ought to do a show from South Beach, Carlos, from the Miami Heat front offices. You ought to do a show with the beach in the background.
Yeah, because getting in the office, it wouldn't be nice. It'll be furniture. But Mary said he needs some more players. They do. Miami's just kind of stuck, like in, you know, it's like they're in neutral. They're not going forward, but they're kind of going backwards a little bit. So, but anyway, Clippers and Denver has been a good series. And by the way, Coach Graves, the Knicks, they won 4-2, but every one of those games was less than a 4-point win. It could have went anyway, but Detroit Wheeler, they're young. They keep it together. They will be back. They will be back. Denver,
if the Knicks take the Celtics to 6 games, Carlos, if they get it to 6 and have a shot to win 6 and take it to game 7, they're gonna beat the Celtics.
That must be your bold statement.
That is my bold statement. That's why I think Boston's gonna win. I think Boston's gonna blow the Knicks out in game 1. I like to see game 2. I mean, because the Knicks just went through this grueling series. Boston's been sitting back chilling for the last week and a half. They're gonna handle the Knicks in game 1. I'm anxious to see game 2.
Well, I'm gonna come to that. I'm gonna come back to that. Clippers and Denver. It's been a good series. The Clippers could actually be up in this series a good bit. You know, they could be almost looking to close it out. You know, Denver, some argue, Jokic, one of the best players in the world. They got hot at the end of the last game. It's in Denver. It's going to be interesting. Can the Clippers get it done in game 7, or will Denver take it? Charles' prediction, who in those 7 games, you got Houston, right?
No. I mean, even though Golden State looked awful in game 6, honestly, I do think they're going to win game 7 in Houston. I think the experience and inexperience, I'm gonna give Golden State one more shot at it. So I'm going with Golden State in game 7, and I'm going with Denver in game 7. I think the experience, the Joker, Murray, So I'm going with in that altitude, even though the Clippers have had success. I'm going with Denver in Game 7, and I'm going with Golden State in Game 7.
Okay, well, the Ravens are not in there, so
I'm with Charles on that. I'm with Charles on his picks. Sound judgment, the whole 9 yards, and I think that's the way it's going to go.
I'm remembering when Minnesota took out Denver. Another bold statement. I think the Clippers are going to win. I got both teams winning on the road in Game 7.
Wait, Carlos, here's another question. We talk about teams that it may be time to dismantle. If the Clippers don't win Game 7, is it time to add the Clippers to those listed teams? You've had Kawhi.
Good question.
Is it time? You got Lawrence Frank, Vice President, Basketball Operations. You got Jeff Van Gundy on this. I mean, is it time to start opening up the Clippers organization and saying, is it time? Kawhi Leonard's not getting any younger. You got James Harden.
He's playing great, though.
Yeah,
he went to those injuries. To answer your question, in my opinion, no.
Give it another shot, win or lose?
Another shot, yep. I really would.
Yeah. You got an owner that's willing, he built that palace over there. He's willing to spend money. No stone unturned, and Mr. Ballmer. But, I'm just wondering, you let Paul George go. It's a question. Is it time if the Clippers don't get it done? This might be one of the bigger games that they've had in a long time with that organization there.
Mm-hmm. Willa, you think they should open it up? Yeah.
Got to be prepared to go backwards for maybe a year or so, while you're trying to get it in gear, that sort of thing. So, it's a lot to weigh. Do you try to shoot with the same crew one more time? See if we can get one for old time's sake.
I'm gonna tell you, Kawhi Leonard, man, if he can stay healthy, he's a difference maker. I'm gonna tell you, and he's so professional. He doesn't get into all this yakety yak on post games and all of that. Yeah, just my gut feeling. I'd give it one more year. I'd give it. Got a great young coach. Great coach. Speaking, let's see what else we have though. Okay, the Knicks and the Celtics. I'm predicting the Celtics to win the series. And the one thing that kind of bothers me, and it's not to take anything away from Bronson, they run so much ISO. And Detroit just wasn't smart. Why didn't you just trap him and get the ball out of his hands? Well, Carlos, then somebody's open, but then you have to move and get in space. Like Minnesota did a good job of trapping, then getting back. That's not going to beat the Celtics. I'm sorry. Somebody else. The Celtics are not going to let Bronson beat him. And then he's a little banged up. I would punish him. Look, whoever he's guarding on the Celtics, I'm running that offense through them. But wait a minute, the Celtics, they shoot up threes. That's the only thing. They may put up 70 in game 1, Wheeler, 73s. But I like the Celtics in this series. I'm going to say 4-2.
Yeah. Everybody's talking about that. And, the other part too, Carlos, this has been talked about. I'm sure you've heard and read about it, about the Celtics' longevity as that roster is currently constructed. They're being sold, and the cost of this roster with Tatum and Brown is astronomical. The new owners, according to reports, they're not going to be spending as much money as they're spending now. So what's being reported is just sit back when the Celtics start to gut this team a little bit. This is down the road. It's not for right now. If you're just in the conversation in the Eastern Division, if you're one of the top 3 or 4 teams, like the Knicks, like Indiana, just stick around, because Boston, they're going to have to jettison some of these stars, because financially, with the luxury tax and everything, you're talking about $300 million between Tatum and Brown. Is that sustainable with new owners coming in? The reports are no. So Boston's got to take advantage of this window. You got probably a couple of years before they're going to have to make some tough decisions. This is just going forward. But right now, the Celtics look really, really strong, rested. They just look tough. They're deep. They can shoot. They got all the tools to repeat.
Yeah, but they,
like you said,
again,
Charles, they're gonna ride out that championship window before they break it down.
Yeah, but the one thing that bothers about me, they rely on the three too much. It's good if it's going in.
Yeah.
But if it's not, I long for the days of inside out. But now it's outside, then in. We got about 8 minutes left. Let me move quickly. Indiana and Cleveland. I think Cleveland you talk about all the pieces. They got the post people. They can be out. Mitchell just dynamite. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but they're gonna defeat the Pacers. Now I'm gonna go with 4-2 in this one, but it could be 4-3. But I'm gonna say 4-2.
I'm gonna say Cleveland in 5. I'm gonna say Cleveland.
I'm saying Indiana in 6.
What? That's Willer's bold statement.
That's my bold statement.
Well, if that comes through, we'll have to send you a 10-pound sack of crawfish. I don't know if you eat crawfish. I know Charles does.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
That is really a bold statement, but hey, anything could happen. Now let's address, and somebody brought it up, I think Chuck Hunt. Guinness, they lost, of course, to Indiana. It was just an energetic series, a lot of trash talking. Yeah, you're right. Cavs defense is good, very good. So, you're going for OC now, Melanie. Wise decision. Wise decision. So they're on the court. And I think I text you guys in a group text message. This is the problem. A lot of people are courtside. His dad is not entitled to go on the court and do those things. And then so Guinness is coming off he's on the court. And you got to see the whole video. Sometimes it's pieces of it. He's holding the towel and pointing. And then he kind of goes up to Guinness. And then they get into a heated altercation. I say Halliburton's father is wrong. He was dead wrong. Stay behind in your seat, courtside. You have no business. Come on. And if Guinness would have dropped him, then Guinness will be looking at a fine and legal matters.
10-game suspension, maybe more.
Yeah, but stay behind in the seat.
He knew he was a Greek kid. He knew he wasn't an inner city kid by no means. That sort of thing. Halliburton wasn't a fool. He wasn't a fool. He wasn't a run up on no guy from Baltimore or LA or Detroit or something
or
like
Anthony
that.
Edwards.
A hard-nosed city kid, because he'd got beat down out there. But, you can't allow fans of any type on the floor at all, So, I mean, it's up to the team to make sure that people stay in the stands, regardless if mama, daddy, wife, whomever, see them when they come out of the locker room or what have you. You put those rules out there up front. Everybody knows coming in the building, you don't come out on the floor and, players only. And you just kind of keep it moving from there. But it's going to take one bad incident, Carlos and Charles, to happen, for that to become like a league-wide rule or, what have you. Yeah.
Yeah. Because Charles Shannon Sharp did that during this season. He sits courtside. Back to Halliburton's father, I think he should be banned. He should be banned for the rest of the playoff season and to teach him a lesson.
Next year, I think.
Yeah.
I think Giannis showed great restraint until he didn't. I mean, if you see the video, he was just kind of standing there, and then all of a sudden and I thought him and his father were exchanging pleasantries and just saying congratulations or whatever. And then all of a sudden it just blew up, and I'm like, what are we doing here? I mean, you're getting into a face of an old man here. I mean, it doesn't matter if his father. I mean, I just thought that was a bad look for Giannis, bad look for the daddy, bad look for the league. It gave me chills to even look at a video like that. And I know the emotions, the season's over. You know, you let the game get away in the final 30 seconds, all that. But still, that didn't need to happen. It shouldn't have happened, and it's just a bad look.
But Charles, I'm gonna say, Guinness, he was not at fault at all. Look, I'm a man, and you come up in my face, and then he comes right up to me. Again, he doesn't need to be on that court at all.
No, he doesn't.
You have to learn how to win gracefully when you win and when you lose.
Yeah.
He was dead wrong. He was dead wrong. And can you imagine him coming up to Barkley and doing that? We know what the results would have been. No, Guinness wasn't wrong at all. But he's a human being, and somebody's getting in your face and talking smack. I thought he handled himself well.
He did.
Quite a few guys, he might have got punched out. There's quite a few other guys, he might have got punched out. You know, if that had been Moses Malone or, you know, Alonzo Mourning or, you know, Dr. J or, you know, somebody of that stature, you know, that boy's father would have got knocked out.
He'd have been he'd have woke up 9 days later. On that note, we're fast approaching the end of the show. Got about less than 2 minutes, but I just but Charles, you're right. It's a bad look.
Yeah.
It was a bad look, and it kind of reminded me of the Troy Pistons and Indiana Pacers when they had that melee.
Yeah.
That you don't want another one of those incidents where people are up in the stands, and we look at the sports now. You got parents getting mad with an umpire's call. That wasn't a ball. That was a strike. And then they're attacking umpires. They're going on the field. We're in a world that is just
crazy.
Yeah, sports used to be an outlet to relax, and have a good thing. But we must stop that. So the Pighead Award goes to Halliburton's dad. Shame on you. And you went to, as Willa said, Guinness is from Africa, but lived in what is it, Greece? You shouldn't have done that. I want to thank everybody in the chat room, the panel, Melody, producer. Melody will be all right. The Lakers are gone. Follow OKC like me. Championship. And the chat room. We'll see you next Saturday at 11 a.m. for another edition of the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. Peace and God bless. And in Baton Rouge, go vote.
Free.